We can now offer to our clients a broader opportunity from a functional perspective.
Oh, it's great. It's the first one of these I've been to, and I mean the location is fantastic. There seems to be an excellent group of people here.
The key differential between success and failure in business is your people.
Over a bacon sandwich, it's amazing what you can find out, and I think an early start is great for most people.
Everyone wants to know about interim these days, whether you're actually wanting to be an interim yourself or hire interim talents.
One of the main strands for marketing within BIE is to hold events, branded BIE, where we get interesting speakers to come along. And it's not about us, it's actually about the event and what the attendees can get from it. But of course, from our point of view, it is to engage more with our clients and potential clients. Because obviously it's not just about recruiting them, it's how you engage with them, and then of course it's retention. And the people we've got along today, we've got a mix, so we're going to get the perspective of a chief exec, an HR director and a finance director.
I hope that the guests will take away some sound bites of creating a culture within the organisation, their organisations, which will enable them to not only retain talent within their organisation, but also create a pull into their business, which will enable them to hire stronger individuals from their competitors.
With Arch Matheson functionally focused in both search and interim on HR, finance and supply chain and procurement, whereas BIE is multifunctional across the multi-specialists. As you can imagine though, this has led to a number of common clients. For both candidates and clients, I think the question has been, are these businesses complementary or are they in competition? For candidates, whereas previously you might have registered with both businesses, we can now give you a joined-up experience and discuss a broader range of opportunities. I hope that you find this morning productive, and certainly any constructive feedback would be gratefully received. Jonathan, could I hand over to you, please?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and first of all, let me just add to Rob's thanks to welcome you all here. I hope you had a lovely breakfast so far. Just to really pick up on the title of today's event, Attracting and Engaging Talent, that's what you saw on the invitations. And we've established 3 leading members of commerce who will basically be picking up and answering questions over the next hour. On the panel we have Leo McKee, who's the CEO of Bright House. We have Carol Frost, who's the HR Director of Centrica Energy, and Richard Roberts, who's the Director of Finance at UK Power Networks, ladies and gentlemen. So a quick round of applause to our 3. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Leo McKee.
We are currently recruiting 100 managers a year, and there are certain companies in the UK that we target, to be honest, because of their culture, and there are others that we'd be less likely to take people from. One of the reasons I enjoy working with BIE is the key players in BIE understand our business and what we're about, so it saves a lot of time, because the very important thing is that they understand our people and what we're about. I think when you do that, so for example, when I was recruiting an HR director, the headhunter said to me, how many people do you want to look at? I said 1, right? On the basis that you know the business, by all means put up a straw man or woman. But 1.
Because it's interesting that you talk about that, because just looking at some of the things that you've achieved in your career so far, and it does appear within there that there are opportunities for financial reward and also financial incentives. So yes, that does play a part.
Oh, absolutely, totally. A number of years ago when I worked for Levi Strauss, we targeted Marks and Spencer's, and I remember we sought to recruit a buyer from Marks and Spencer's, and we offered the individual a pay increase of about 50%, and to my amazement, he didn't come. And the reason he didn't come was he said, I like the people I work with. I think the CEO has to put the development and retention of talent at the very top of his agenda, and has to make people feel that they're part of the company. A number of factors play a part there. We've said remuneration is very important, but I also think that communication is very important, and that if the people in my business can feel engaged and respected, I'm likely to hold them longer and they're likely to be more productive. The most important is that people feel part of something, that they're proud to be associated with the team. If you think about it, my aspiration is that being at my company passes the cocktail party test. You know, I can remember many years ago, I've got a brother who's got a flat in Chelsea, and he's a bit of a poser. And
you're not?
I'm not, no, hopefully not anyway. Well, put it this way, he wears bangles and baubles, you know, I don't. And I was at Tom's party, and someone came up to me and said, to me, "You're Tom's older brother, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I work with Levi Strauss." And he said, "Levi Strauss? Wow," right? So when I went to Woolworths, you know, and people said to me, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm an accountant." Right? Which of course was a lie. I was in HR. So it's really, if people can identify with the brand and be proud of the brand, and so therefore the companies which are best at retention in the UK, I can think of a business whose remuneration policy is to pay upper decile plus 15%, right? They don't necessarily have the best retention, right? People have to feel that they are treated fairly, competitively, so on and so forth. But I think it's a mistake to assume that it's the only, or indeed the primary factor.
Ladies and gentlemen, Carol Frost. Lovely. Well, Carol, let's talk about the specifics of Centrica and how you would attract and engage talent and how you feel that is unique to your company.
What we've done is develop something very simple. Other companies, I think our hypothesis was you have a shopping list of values. The CE Ways is high performance, pioneering spirit and safety. It's really embedded in everything that we do. So Centrica Energy, we think, is quite special from that perspective. So we're not talking generally about people doing amazing, world-shattering things. We're talking about asking people whether they can do things better, whether they can do things differently, and whether they can do things more safely. So actually, that's pretty simple, which was the idea to start with. And it's quite difficult to be cynical in the face of those kind of really simple concepts. Role models are really, really important. And we've had a process where we've been encouraging people to give one another feedback and talk about, okay, when you did that, you know, this is the impact that you had on me. And again, some people find that a little bit American, but other people quite like that. And what we've found is that almost there's a peer pressure. We have three different parts of our business. So we have oil and gas, power generation, and trading. And actually the CE Way is slightly different in each one of those businesses because that's appropriate. So in the trading business, they're not in a high hazard environment. So safety actually for them means trading safely, making sure that there aren't breaches of process. Whereas as you can imagine in the power business, safety is entirely different. So it's not one size fits all. It does flex, if you like, dependent on the business and the context. And that's what makes it live and makes it real for people.
Psychometric testing, good, bad, or indifferent?
Well, I think it depends how you use it. So the way that I've described it, so we have a psychometric that helps us understand people's attitude towards our CE Way elements. We're not using it as a cut-off, okay, safety, you didn't reach a 5, so you can't. But what we're using it as is an indicator so that we can test at interview whether actually what came out in the psychometric is right. So what is your attitude to safety? Is it a strength? Is it something that you just don't think is important? Or is it something that you haven't really thought about before? And so through the interview process, we can test. Psychometrics help us to understand people better. Because what we want to do is we want to build our culture and we want to bring people into the organisation who are going to reinforce our culture, not dilute it. So we would almost be foolish not to take notice of that.
Carol Frost. Thank you very much, Carol. Please welcome on stage. It is Richard Roberts. Thank you very much indeed. We'll get to how you best feel talent can be engaged and addressed as well and taken on board. But you're the one that has to control the expectations, one of the shareholders, but then also the workers, the employees as well.
We always want to make sure that we've aligned the interests of the owners with the interests of the managers and the staff. And so we spent a lot of time at the beginning of 2011 reviewing and re-implementing our incentive mechanism to make sure that it was going to generate the performance in the areas where we needed performance to improve. And the great thing is that on the back of introducing a new framework with more powerful payments that were available for really stretched performance, through the year we were able to see performance turn around very significantly, probably by far and away the biggest annual level of improvement that I've seen in all the time I've been in the business.
Very much a case of spending money to save money.
Yeah, absolutely, because I obviously do control the purse strings, and Chris Degger, HR director, is a frequent visitor into my office. We're a business that actually, we've got a £6 billion asset base, substations, overhead lines, underground cables, but actually the most important asset we've got in the business are the people that work for us. And so we've actually got a people asset management plan as well as a network asset management plan. And I'm in regular dialogue with the HR director to make sure that the things we want to do to improve the workforce, to improve the engagement levels, to train and develop them better, that there's the funding in the budget. So this year's an interesting an interesting example. We've been cutting the costs quite significantly in the business, but for training and development, we actually found another £1 million to put into the budget, and we've been out and about communicating that and making that really visible to the staff to demonstrate that although we're always looking to be more efficient, in the areas where we should be investing, we are.
And finally, from the point of view purely of the financial director now, from a small, perhaps you can give us 3 examples of sort of small, middle and large scale business. What is your recipe for success in each of those?
Well, and actually I think there's common themes there, because I think, okay, small businesses, they have to tailor their approaches, but things like, engaged employees, strong teams are as important, if not maybe more important, for a small business where you can't afford to carry any passengers than they maybe are for a big business like ours, where with 5,000 employees, you can carry a few passengers. So I think, those things are as relevant for the small business as they are for the large one. I think on the medium businesses, you've obviously got a bit more of a budget to spend on some of the sort of the training development areas. And for the larger businesses, I think, again, it's making sure that you're investing that money in a sensible way, because with large workforces, there are many different requirements that those workforces have got, lots of different skill sets that need to be brought along, developed, trained and everything. So it's having a properly joined up approach to make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck.
Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Roberts. Lovely. Well, it's about this time of the day where I realise just how...
There's a lot of talk at the moment around huge levels of change impacting on all organisations, so social, technological, economic. I'm interested in kind of what do you think will be the biggest influences on your people strategies over the next 3-5 years?
We have a growth agenda, and we have a very, very aggressive growth agenda, which requires people with particular skill sets and very niche skill sets in some instances. And our biggest challenge is around getting the right people, the best people and enough people, get managers to think beyond technical skills, think about culture. And it just building on that, our demographic challenges in the energy industry are fairly significant, and most of you will have heard of those. We have a significant number of people retiring and not that many coming through. So we're grappling with, okay, how do we bring those people through quickly? How do we get away from the mindset that you have to have done this for 5 years and that for 10 years before you can take on the next job? And how can we take much bigger bets on people and move people through their careers, but still have the governance in place in a high-risk industry, that we don't get ourselves and the people that we are moving through their careers into any difficulty. And there are quite a lot of tensions in those challenges that we're just working through.
In terms of engaging, particularly retaining talent, do any of you make any special efforts to identify those with potential and career path them, so actively looking to career path people to give them the experiences they need for other roles?
I think it's absolutely vital that communication is continuous. The leadership group have to be behavioural role models, and therefore those who emulate the desired behaviours in terms of listening, energy, customer focus and so on and so forth, we seek to identify. So I think your point about constantly on the quest for internal talent and how you nurture it is very, very important, because it's too easy to go outside and just bring people in.
If you're looking to evolve the culture of a business from an entrepreneur-led business to obviously a business that is growing up and has governance. What advice could you provide me?
It's really important that as the business grows, that you start introducing sort of different frameworks to support that and to put sort of maybe better governance arrangements in place. I know because I started out working in a small business of less than 100 people, and there was really no formal governance, no formal reporting of performance or anything. And then I think as you grow and become bigger, then making sure that you've got more formal frameworks of developing, training staff, engaging them in the performance that you're looking for from the business. I think those are the sorts of things that you should be focusing on.
Leo, Carol and Richard, on behalf of us all, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
What's very interesting, even those three different sort of functional areas, they all came out with very similar views about that it's about culture, attitude, developing our people.
As a hard-nosed commercial finance director, what I want to know is what's the bottom line impact in terms of the policies and seeing that through to fruition.
It's been a very useful event, particularly for someone in finance in a small company actually looking to glean insights into particularly talent management. So it's been very helpful.